Hello to everyone and welcome to Digital Dragons. Thank you for joining me on this webinar where I'll show you how multi-channel automation can deliver 156% growth. So my name is Gonçalo Martins. I'm head of marketing at Boombit. Basically, I've been working in the hyper-casual and gaming industry for over 3 years and a half. And at Boombit, I help and coordinate the user acquisition monetization team in order to make sure that we have the best UA and monet processes around. So talking a bit about Boombit. So Boombit is a game developer and publisher. We focus mainly on hyper-casual games, but also we do have a lot of mid-core successes like Hunt Royale and Archery Club. So we do launch our games worldwide. We have over 900 million downloads all across the globe. Just on 2020, we reached the mark of over 200 million installs. So it was an amazing year for us. In 2021, we are almost reaching this value with still a lot of months to go. We are a remote open company, so we do accept and we do like when some of our employees are also spread across the globe and can just help us from any point of the world. And over the past year, we are over 250 employees with over 12 nationalities within our amazing team. And of course, also a lot of these 250 employees that do and make Boombit, they also work across the globe. If you are interested in meeting us, feel free to check out our virtual booth. Also, always feel free to contact us. I'm going to leave you here these two emails, and feel free to contact us, even if it's just to know a bit more about Boombit, if it is to come in contact with us for business relations, or even just if you feel like you would be happy to be part of the Boombit family. So yeah, feel free to contact us and send us everything that you want. So let's go into the webinar itself. So today's agenda is going to be pretty simple. So what we're going to talk about and we're going to discuss a bit is like what were the challenge from the past on the UA perspective for Boombit. How did these challenges actually made us develop our own algorithm for bidding, and then consequently how did we turn also this optimization cycle, new mentality into the creative optimization and campaign optimization. So at the end, we'll show you the final results, and there's a bit of a teaser for also one of our colleagues that is going to also talk about the tool that we developed that is going to build, that's going to glue all of this together. So yeah, hang in there. I think it's going to be a nice webinar. So starting with the main UA challenges that we had a couple of months ago. So in the beginning of the year, we were growing a lot. We just had like a full year pretty strong on upper casual. But basically what happened is that it created a lot of challenges, especially when it came to bidding, right? So there was a lot of networks, a lot of subsources, a lot of countries, a lot of geos, a lot of games, and this made us not able to manage tens of thousands of bids manually, and that's why we decided to develop our own algorithm that would allow us to at least make sure that we have a universal rule that would change tens of thousands of bids at one go. And then also one of the biggest challenge was reacting and not acting. And what I mean by this was that we were mainly only reacting to the bid changes and to the obstacles when we are already seeing the impact of that in our UA and monetization. And by automating a lot of processes, you start creating a lot of alertings that can tell you right away from day one, from minute one, when something is not working, and you can avoid a lot of troubles. The last point is definitely scalability, because it was at each new game, at each new network, at each new geo, you were just adding more work, and it was starting to be really hard to manage. While when you do have an automated process, whatever you add on top is just going to be is going to give you the same amount of work, right? Because the algorithm is going to run the same for 9, 10, 15, 20, 100 games. So these were the three main challenges that then made us really take a step back and look and try to understand what we really needed to do to perfect our process. And that's when, once again, we decided to build our own algorithm, build our own creative and campaign alerting, and then one tool kind of to gather all of this. So starting with the rise of the algobit, like we call it. So there was like I think there's three main pieces in this algobit, and I'll try to speak to you a bit about this. So the main one is that we decided that the main rules need to be a bit universal. And why is that? Well, I think you do as a company and as a department, you need to make sure that the main goals are common across kind of all games, all geos, all networks, to make sure that then you don't have an algorithm that it's very tricky, right? And that you need to tune it every single day at every single hour. So the main rules, like for example the profitability rules or the success rules, they need to be very clear for everyone, just so that you can reach as many subsources, as many bids, as many games as possible. But then, of course, you also need to understand your audience and adapt a little bit. So you need to make sure you need to know your partners, for example. So know the networks that where you are bidding. You need to know the audience that you are targeting. You need to know, I don't know, some small seasonality effects, for example, and then just every week, every month, every even day, if possible, tune the main goals towards like all your partners and all your audiences. So you're gonna see also in a bit where this really came handy. And the last thing is to experiment every theory. So we went crazy as well in some experience. I would say we every time we do have an idea and we put it on top of the table, we try to experiment in a couple of games, and you're going to see how sometimes experimenting it's the key to success. And I think that this three, if you do have these three pieces together, you can have a pretty stable algorithm to automate all your bidding process. So starting with the first one, there's I think three main rules that we use across almost every game. So the first one is the return on investment goal. So by having a common ROI goal, I think you make the algorithm much faster. It is more efficient because then you don't have to each day check the bits that are coming out of the algorithm, and you give more time to your managers to then do the necessary manual adjustments if needed. Why? Because you know that you can count with this ROI goal for all your games, all your networks. And if you do have, for some reason, one or two games that you want to to change this goal or to at least try something new, then you can go to that specific game and do that change. But at least you do have the stability and you know that your main ROI goal is stable, and that's what you can count on. The second thing is, for example, the ECPM cap, how we call it. So this ECPM cap, I'm going to show an example right in the next slide, but it's good to know how much above you want to go out of the ECPM from the networks when you are buying users. I'm going to give you an example right away. The last thing is the key features. So for example, there's a couple of things that are common across any game, any network. For example, the performance of users during the days of the week, during the geos, the genre, and this, if you can really just make a rule for across all the networks, and you don't have to worry a lot about this anymore. If you make it global, if you make it universal. So, like I told you, one of the things that we really added to our algorithm, and it was pretty interesting to see it work, was the ECPM cap. So here giving you an example, you have on the bottom line the number of installs going up, and and on the line above you have the CPM from the network. Meaning, so this is one you are doing UA, and you are buying per mil impressions, and of course the more interesting it is, the UA that is more interesting for the network is the UA that has the higher ACPM, right? But at some point, you are always competing with everyone in the industry, but at some point, your offer is indeed the most profitable for the network. So you're not going to gain a lot by increasing your bid, right? Because if you are increasing your bid, and you're already the number one profit source on the network side, basically what you're going to do is you are increasing the price that you're paying per user, but you're not getting much more installs. As you can see here, every time you increase, you're increasing the CPM, you are increasing the number of installs by a lot, up to the point where here on this example, $11 is the optimal point. You're already like the most profitable bid for the network. And as you can see, even if you do keep increasing your bid, at some point you're not going to be gaining a lot of new users. So this is the optimal point. That, going to this example, if you really are looking at the final profit that you're getting from your UA, at some point it's worth not to keep increasing the bid, even though you are super profitable. Sometimes if you are only looking to profitability, it's worth checking and understanding what's your CPM cap and stay on that level to make sure that you have the most profitable users. Because of course, if you do, in this example, if you do keep increasing the CPM, your costs will be increasing. Of course, your revenue will also be increasing, but the profit per user is definitely going to start decreasing after this optimal point. We did some partnerships with some networks where we get these CPM levels, I would say. Of course, broad per geo, per network, and per game genre. But at least it can give you a cap that you can then manage and create at least some buffers to make sure that you're not overpaying for your users. Then going back as well, I was telling you about key features, and a really, really important key feature for us is the day of the week. So the seasonality, and I can put the example right away, and a big example is, for example, the performance of Monday users. We see right away that, and as you can see on this example, Monday users are users with really lower ARPU versus the rest of the week. Also, we get much more volume on Friday and on the weekend, and normally the ARPU is also slightly higher. As you can see here, what the Algo bid did was to decrease the bid on Monday, because we know that there's a higher chance that this traffic will have much lower ARPU. And as you can see, it did indeed. It was the worst day of the week in terms of ROI day zero. And normally we do also increase the bid on Friday if the performance before is positive. In this case, we were minus 47% on day zero. I'm assuming that the target ROI was, let's say, around 40. So we didn't increase the bid, we even decreased it a bit. But as you can see right away on the next day, it was the most profitable day of the week, because Friday and Saturday especially are really, really profitable. And then on Monday, we always have a drop in impressions. We have a drop on ARPU day zero, because we did feel that these users are not as they're not going to play as long the games as in on the weekend. So this was really important for us as well. It was somehow of a game changer, and now every Monday our algorithm tunes it down a bit, and on Friday it tunes it a bit up to make sure that we can keep up with the weekend traffic. So now going to the second step of the algorithm, that is understand your audience and adapt. I'm just gonna here give you some examples of what I mean by this. So we do have our main goals, right? Like I told you before. But then if you do go on the network side of things, networks work differently. Like that's just obvious. Not all the networks are the same. And that's why this is really good for us, because they are targeting different type of people in different type of platforms. So you do need to understand your networks. You do need to know your networks so that you can then adapt your algorithm to different ad networks. Then you have the audience side of things, right? You have the geo, you have the game genre, you have the game type, you have several things that you can adapt right away from the start, because you know that they're going to work the same across all games, across all networks. So if you go here to the networks, for example, you can definitely do a difference between social and SDK networks. And when we say SDK networks, I'm talking about networks like Unity, Uplevel, and IronSource. And something that is very important on social versus SDK is that on social, normally the bid is something more of an indication of the target that we want to reach, right? It's an indication of the price that you want to pay, while on the SDK is much more narrow, right? It's much more the price that you say that you want to pay is the price that you're going to get. So just these two different dynamics can impact a lot your bidding and your UA. And that's why on social we always try to be a bit more indicative. So try to give a higher bid than place a higher bid than what we are looking for, because we know that that's how social networks adapt in terms of UA. And then on the SDK side of things, we try to be as precise as possible. We try to go to the third decimal if possible. And we know that the algorithm needs to be slightly more sensitive on the SDK for us to have like amazing results. Then on the audience side of things, we need to make sure that, for example, on the geos, there's a lot of tier three geos, sorry, that just raising 10% of your bid is not going to have any impact, either because it's so low that you cannot actually increase 1 cent or half a cent, because 10% of half a cent, it's really a low value. So you need to make sure that the algorithm is understanding this, and as soon as it's dealing with countries like, I don't know, like India and Mexico, it gives a bigger buffer to increase and decrease the bid. But also on the game genre, right? We work with mid-core games, we work with upper casual games, we work with slightly more casual games, and for this you do need to change a bit your ROI goals. And this is something that is a bit counter what I said before, but it's not, because you do have your main goals. But if you do have your main goals per genre and you are each day perfecting these ROI goals per genre, will make your algorithm much more profitable and much more adaptable, I would say, than just having a main ROI for all your game genres. It's actually impossible to do that. So, and then going to the last piece of the puzzle, experiment every theory. Like I told you, we do have some pretty interesting experiments. So one was the hourly bidding. So we tried in a couple of games and a couple of networks to change bids every hour, literally. As you can see there on that small graph, is just between like the 16th and the 21st of June. And you can see how many bids it goes up and down and up and down, just because you know that when in the morning the users are more profitable, then in the afternoon they are less profitable, then when they go to sleep they're also like better quality users, let's say. And we decided to play bid this game, and in the beginning we did have some interesting results, but then we saw that even though the results were positive and it was a nice experiment, this constant bid changing was actually disturbing a bit the algorithms. So from the network side, so we decided to stop. But if you do want to go ahead and do the same type of test of experiments, feel free and share it with us. Then iOS 14.5 was obviously a massive challenge for our algorithm. we had to create predictions for everything, right? We need to predict and calculate CPIs, ARPU, day 7, ROI based on the matrix, on a matrix that we developed. I'm talking mainly of Facebook, of course, and of social networks. And this was a big challenge for us, but now we are 100% certain that we cracked it. So it was super interesting to have to do several tests on several geos to understand on day 0, day 1, day 2, day 3 how many of the postbacks were coming back, to understand what is the drop of ARPU from organic to the users that we are acquiring. It was really an amazing challenge to have, but the final piece was to add this new theory on our algorithm, and now we are back to doing automatic UA for 14.5, which is amazing. And one test that it was, I think, kind of like a fail, but it was also good for us, was to try and make a decision tree within the algorithm. So instead of having an algorithm always following the same rules, we try to create a decision tree that would allow us to be even more intelligent and adaptable. But we like very quickly saw that it was not a great decision. But once again, like I think it's really worth testing all of these theories to make sure that you are not missing any opportunity. So yeah, so putting these three pieces together, I think we were able to build an amazing algo bid that allowed us to automate all our bidding. But with this part automated, we had space and time to start focusing on different challenges, on other possibilities to perfect our UA. And that's when creative alerting came up. And we decided that it was very important to make sure that all our campaigns and all our creatives, they were automated, and we were producing some alertings from this. So here is the part where we wanted to start reacting and not just acting after the issue came up. So just talking pretty quickly about the creative optimization challenge that we had. So I think like any studio or any publisher, our creative process is pretty simple. So our creative team has an idea, and then it starts producing this idea. Then as soon as we receive it, we do some creative testing in some of our UA networks. Then if that creative testing comes positive, we A/B test it on the real campaigns versus the winning creative. Then of course, if it wins versus the previous winning creative, we promote it. If not, we just let it stay the same. And then we would just day by day, week by week, check the campaign performance. However, we felt that there was something missing, and there was something really big missing. That it was this in between, right? So as soon as you do have your winning creative and you put it on a campaign, we were then checking the performance of the campaign day by day, but we are not really checking the evolution of the creative day by day. Okay. And this was super important for us. And also create some alertings based on this to let us know that the creative was actually working well, was working not as well as before. So we created some automatic alertings based on ARPU, on IPM, on CVR, on so many other metrics. A really nice example, and this is real data, is that this is a campaign that we had. So we had creative A and creative B live in a campaign, and then as you can clearly see, and it's pretty obvious, as soon as creative A was delivering a much better ARPU than the creative B, we canceled creative B and we let creative A stay. Then at some point we created a new creative, that is the creative C. And as you can see right away from the start, on the first weeks, this new creative was having a much better ARPU. And once again, we promoted this new creative. However, there was I think this process is pretty simple. I think everyone does it, but something that was really not so much under our eyes was this scenario at the end. That is, when you do promote a creative and it's your winning creative, even if it is per ARPU, you can also do this on IPM, you can do this on CVR or on whatever. This creative starts after a couple of weeks to get used up, right? It starts losing a bit its value because it's been shown to thousands and thousands of people. So that's when we started understanding that sometimes it's good to go back. Why? Because if you do check on this example, you have Creative C that was had an amazing ARPU creative, but then it started going down week after week, up to the point where actually it's better to go back to the old creative, right? Because as you can see, creative A here, when we removed it, it had a 1.1 ARPU per creative. That nowadays it's much better than Creative C. So this was somehow of a game changer as well. Try to always have this in mind, that it's not only promoting new creatives and let the campaign go and check the performance of a campaign, right? And then decrease bids based on ROI, but it's also trying to look at the ARPU per creative, try to find these loopholes where sometimes it's even better to go back to old creatives with maybe slightly lower IPM, but that is bringing you much more value than the winning creative that now it's getting old and the people are not interacting as much. So as you can see, for example, our automation would flag these three spots, right? Would flag the spot where there's a new winning creative on A, a new winning creative on B. But once again, like that C is much as a lower ARPU than what could be the possibility of having. So the last step was, of course, to create some alerting out of this, right? Because this is the algorithm working, but then you need to push it to the managers. You need to push it to the team. And the way we found was to create some Slack alerting. So this is one of our examples where each day the managers receive, for all the geos, all the networks, all the games, they do receive Slack alerts telling you how the performance of your creative is going, right? At each day, the managers, they don't need to check and go to each campaign and check how is the performance. They just need to relax, to receive the most important alerts of the day and act on them. And that's, I think, the big difference is trying to be very acting right from day one. As soon as our algorithm starts flagging that there's creatives with better CVR, with better ARPU, etc., then to have to wait 1, 2, 3 weeks and then maybe go check that campaign and understand that you are not in the most optimal point. So as soon as we started creative alerting, like it's written there, once you start alerting, there's no coming back. So basically what we decided was to then automate all our campaign optimization, let's say, and make sure that everything that is campaign related, it has its own alerts and it's connected to Slack. So the creatives I already talked about. So it's, for example, when an IPM is lower than the winning creative, when the CVR is below the threshold, when the ROI is negative, when the CPM is lower than the winning creative. But then also on the campaign side of things, you can do a lot of stuff. You can have spend alerts. So when spend increases or decreases massively, it means that something is wrong, right? If you do decrease 50% your spend, something is wrong on that campaign. If you do increase by 3,000, it's also something is already letting you know that something is wrong. Maybe you misplaced the bid. Maybe, I don't know, you open up a budget that you shouldn't. And so this helps the UA managers be reactive right away. Also on the bidding side of things, you can have some alerts saying that the budget has been cut, that the bid change was above 20% or 50%, all the things that just to make sure that you have everything being told to you. So just so that you have no excuse to not know what's going on. And this was definitely a game changer for us was when we connected all our alerting into one single space that for us is Slack. So that being said, we can go over the final results of especially the first 2 quarters. It's been such an amazing ride. So we released the Algo bid in January. Then as soon as we did release the Algo bid, we started perfecting it more and more. We added the CPM cap. Then we also added the Creatives API, and I think that was one of our biggest game changers. Then we started adding campaign alerts as well, as soon as we saw that the Creative API was working really well. Then, during these 2 months, we developed a lot, all the campaign alerts that I told you before, creative and campaign alerts. Then also we added the weekly bid adjustments. And finally, in May, we added the volume alertings and the creative alerts. So all of this together was it resulted in a 156% increase just from January to May. It's been a crazy ride so far, and it's so amazing how you're just adding one piece at a time. But then after 5 months, after 6 months, after 8 months, you look back and you see how much you've actually added, and you see how this small algorithm, all these small alertings, now they are literally your day-to-day process, and they are driving literally your day-to-day. So I think only when you look back you see how big is starting to get, and that was a bit the objective of today, was to showing you what you've been doing for the past 6 to 8 months. So this is more or less the flow. Of course, it's much more complex than this, but there was something missing, right? The last thing that it was missing was one tool to add all of this together, right? One tool where you can actually see all the campaigns, all the performance, all the alertings, change the beats, change the budgets, receive the beats from the algo beat and change it if needed. So many things. But there was one tool that was missing, right? To put all of this glue together. And basically, I'm just doing here a small teaser for also another webinar on digital dragons by Kamil Kufel. It's called One Tool to Rule Them All, and it's going to tell you of the long and pretty nice journey of what we call Boombit, that it is indeed this shell that is agglomerating all our algos and all our automation together within one single space. And I think on the graphic before of the evolution of the first 5-6 months, I didn't put the Boombit as one of the stepping stones, but it was definitely one, if not the major stepping stone for also our increase in performance, was to have everything within the same space, right? Being able to act on all the bids, on all the networks, on all the campaigns, receive the alerts, approve the alerts, reject the alerts, approve the bids, reject the bids within the same common space. So yeah, this was is just a teaser for you to definitely go check also Camille's webinar, as I hope it's going to be super insightful. So I think that's it. Thank you very much for this very quick and maybe very specific webinar. I just feel free to ping me on LinkedIn, to send me an email if you do have some questions. I know it can be very specific, but I think also the great part of the audience that is here is aware of all this terminology. So I hope it was interesting for you. I hope it's going to be helpful for you. And yeah, feel free to ping me anytime. And thank you very much.